quality and least safe of the fields that we have in the Menlo Atherton Little League field rotation. And I see some heads nodding out here. I know we have some parents in the group who had kids that play on that field. We began discussions with the Park and Rec Commission 9 months ago, and have taken what I've come to call a listening tour approach, talking to members of the Atherton Dames organization, people who live over in the Felton Gables area, the Holbrook Palmer Park Foundation, of course members of the Park and Rec Commission, as well as the council here, the Planning Commission, a number of Little League parents that we talked about the needs here, and then also some representatives of other sports organizations that play or that have sports activities here in Holbrook Palmer Park. It's clear out of all those conversations that the needs of this ballpark are just a subset of the park's larger capital needs and some of the challenges that the city has had financially. But we feel like a durable and enduring solution is needed with a facility that's really befitting of Atherton and consistent with some of the other quality park projects that I know are planned, such as the new library proposal. And also a solution we felt that was collaborative with many of the other park users as well. What we have proposed, and we would like to work with the Planning Commission to clarify, work up the details of, etc., is a $500,000 capital project. So we put our sport at having invested nearly $1 million in this park. With permanent backstop, seating to avoid having families, and in particular children, running out onto the field during the middle of games, which is one of our safety concerns. Dugouts so that the players are safe during the game. A scoreboard that's tucked out down the third base line, but still allows the players to see the score. With an architectural style, very modest in size, but it has a style that's consistent with the other structures that are here in the park, so not changing any architectural elements of the overall park. A complete overhaul of the turf and drainage and irrigation of that whole area out there. And importantly, raising capital to provide a source of funds for ongoing care and maintenance of the facility. I want to emphasize, because again there's some confusion, what we're proposing is no different in size than what exists up there today. In fact, the fence that we'll show here, which is a removable fence for the off-season, for the outfield fence, is actually inside of the dimensions of the fence that's currently been erected out there on the field. In addition, our proposal involves funding to resurface, completely resurface, not the brief do-over, but completely resurface the tennis court area directly adjacent to the ballpark. Adding, there's capital available to, if necessary, to expand parking, importantly, to redo the walkways out in that area with nice paver stones, storage for the Dames organization, if they choose to access it, so that some of the pods that are out here in the parking lot can be eliminated, the temporary storage pods, as well as storage for a number of the other sports that participate, soccer, lacrosse, tennis. An allocation or dollars for trees, working with the tree committee to establish appropriate placement of those for sound reduction, beautification. As I mentioned, funds for ongoing maintenance and care. And then an additional allocation for other park beautification projects that we would leave up to the foundation and their supporters to figure out how to spend. As I mentioned, the outfield fence part of this, which is a technology that fences about this high, goes into holes that look like a sprinkler head in reverse with a little cap on it. You put it up at the beginning of the season, you take it down at the end of the season, so that the field is open otherwise. And the dimensions of that, as we've outlined here, which are consistent with Little League standards and are inside of the current fencing. So again, the space that we're talking about is identical to what is out there right now. Part of the listening tour was listening to the concerns of residents, including those along Watkins Avenue. We talked to a couple of them, and issues around sight lines, around noise, etc. came up. It's hard to see in this picture, but you may notice that there therefore is in the budget allocated dollars for additional trees that really we leave to, or we're happy to partner with the tree committee to figure out the planning of. But a thought would be, of course, to put them over here where there used to be lovely trees along the railroad area that died off and were never replaced, And of course, the option for them out here is subject to, of course, not wanting to cut into playing space for other sports, because that's not the objective here at all. Part of the leveling area, there's a berm, big rise, right along between what would be the first base foul pole and kind of middle of right field, that makes that space basically inaccessible for other sports that get flattened out. So in fact, ultimately, in fall and so forth, when fields aren't being used, this opens up all of this space. If there aren't trees, if ultimately the tree committee decides not to put those in, opens up all that space for other sports. Here's an example of the scoreboard. Importantly, something that at Little League we're proud of is the new logo that we have on top of the scoreboard. It only gets turned on during games, turned off otherwise, so there's no light transmitting from the park. These are all online, I think, Mayor, so a lot of these documents people have access to, so I won't bore people with the details. Actually, just to point out, on the back side of the grandstand area is where we proposed three things. Storage, as I mentioned before, a couple of very modestly sized, but I think important bathrooms, one boys, one girls, so that the children, when they're playing sports over here, whether it's on the tennis courts or on the baseball field, don't have to run down in the gully during, what do you call it, physical emergencies. And importantly, as we were talking about with the tennis director, having those bathrooms locked, but with keys that also work, that are the same key as what you use to access the tennis court, so players can come over and use those as well, rather than having to walk all the way across the park. There's space in there allocated also for if the games want to do something in the way of fundraising activity, whether it's a snack shack or something like that. I want to be very clear, it's come up in some of the comments on the blog. We have no interest at Little League running a snack shack, zero. We outsource the one we have over at Burgess. But if the Dames would like to use it for fundraising, fantastic. If not, happy to not have it there. It's not a big deal as far as we are concerned. But trying to think about all the constituents here. This is what it would look like sitting in the stands. And importantly, therefore, a place for people to sit. Because what we find in games is that the families start to sit down the sidelines, and then over time they start to wander into the sidelines, and all of a sudden we've got kids running in the middle of the field while their baseball's flying around, which presents a challenge. I apologize for the small print. Again, the details are online, but this is the details of how those dollars are spent, including a $50,000 allocation for park beautification projects, and dollars in there as well for redoing the tennis courts. So all we're requesting, to be very clear, is the approval or the commending the Planning Commission to work with us, to work through the details, to come back for ultimately final approval and go to Town Council, a process during which we would also gather, of course, input from other members of the town. Complete the fundraising after that, so the next steps. We're working through those details with the Planning Commission, the Tree Committee, and Menlo Atherton. We have our own group of volunteers who give their time, but are in the construction industry. The estimated time to rebuild the field as we proposed is about 4 months. We've all coached. We have 20 volunteers on the board of Little League and over 100 volunteers at any point in time. Almost all of us have coached in the league at one point in time or another. I coached for 10 years. My kids are 16, so they don't even play in the league anymore. But one of the toughest things you have as a coach is to go out on that field when things aren't going well and ask somebody else to take over. So on behalf of all the kids out here, and they've heard us say this before, thanks for your time, we appreciate it. And so on behalf of the kids, council members, you have the ball.
Thanks for your presentation. Tonight, in view of the fact there's so much interest in it, if the council agrees, I'd like to have the public comments first before we have the council members' comments. So if we're all agreed with that, that may speed things up. So at this stage, I'd ask everybody to, this is the time for public comments.
Is it on? Okay, everyone, I'm Jennifer Jeffries, 52 Fairview. Bob. Very impressive. I think it's really refreshing to see a lot of new faces that are willing to help this park. With that said, I think that we really need to look at a couple things. First of all, I'm a mom with 2 kids who play 3 sports. My husband Steve is a Little League coach for Little League. So I understand the need and love of baseball as well as for field space. My daughter plays soccer, my son plays soccer, and both kids play lacrosse. So am I getting the field space need to your ears? It is really important that we look at the total package here. It's really fabulous. There's so many fabulous things. However, there are also some things that maybe are a little too state-of-the-art for the flexibility of our site. Our site is horrible out there. The baseball field is horrible. I agree 100%. However, I think that we really need to look at the why and the how and figure out what is the best way for us to use this amazing, amazing offer, but to really make sure that we are covering the needs that this park has always served. I have fundraised for this park for many, many years, and I know how exciting this is. But we really, really should look at how this is going to affect and what parts are really valid and what parts maybe we need to compromise a little bit, because we have a lot of people that use this park. I think it's fabulous. We have a disabilities for Little League, and it's also, this park has always welcomed challenged children. But we really need to also look at who else uses the park. Parks are for throwing the ball's in your court, I agree, but we also have to look at frisbees, picnics, walking tracks, things like that. Thank you very much.
Okay, the other public comments? Here.
Good evening, council members. My name is Michael Milano. I'm a resident of Menlo Park, and I'm addressing this council on various hats, not only as a parent with Little League kids, but also a very active volunteer and the regional commissioner of the AYSO Soccer League in all of Menlo Park, Atherton. I only have a few minutes, but I kind of scripted it all out. I think part of it's the lawyer in me that doesn't like to say anything that I'm not willing to put into writing. But I think the other part is I want to make sure I'm most efficient with everyone's time. I'm going to give you a little bit of that background on AYSO Soccer that again encompasses both Menlo Park and Atherton. And then I'd just like to give you a few AYSO's preliminary thoughts on this proposal. The Soccer League is a recreational soccer league, AYSO's league, and it was founded in 1976. So we've been here for a few years, not as long as Little League's been here. However, we do serve currently, as of 2010, over 1,600 kids, 1,662 to be exact. Of those with those 1,600 kids comes about 1,200 families in both Menlo Park and Atherton. And since Holbrook Palmer is here in Atherton, let's break that down in terms of Atherton residents. In our database, there are, of the 1,662 kids, 228 live in Atherton. And of the 1,226 families, 168 of them in Atherton are Atherton families. So you're looking at approximately about 14% of our league as a whole are Atherton residents, or children of Atherton residents. Let me tell you a little bit about AYSO Soccer. We run both the fall and the spring league. But when you compare the two, our fall league is the full 1,600 players. Our spring league is minuscule. It's about 120 compared to that. Our league runs from about third week of August for about 11 weeks. During that time, we are full 100% of 5:30 practices. We have 2 practices every day at about 9 different fields throughout Menlo Park and Atherton, 4:30 and 5:30. And we run those every day, 5 days a week, and games on Saturdays. Over Palmer is just used for